Welcome back to News and Views, and here in the studio we've got Ken Campbell, our local astronomer. Welcome to the programme, Ken.
Nice to be back again, Karen. It seems to be seeing a lot of you these last few months.
Yeah, unlucky for you.
Well.
And we like to get these little snippets from you. We talked about it yesterday on the programme, about the International Space Station coming over at 12 minutes past 10.
Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but a friend saw it, and somebody else saw it that was watching the programme, and they said it was exactly on time, and it was definitely the most brightest thing in the sky.
We're going to be telling you about a second chance you're going to get for tomorrow, but we'll leave that till the end so that people can get a pen and paper for writing down the times.
Okay, so get your pen and papers, and then Ken will tell you at the end of the interview exactly what time it will be on Wednesday. And what have you got for us? What information for this month?
We're looking back in history a little bit. It's actually, we're going to be talking about the moon landings, the Apollo moon landings. Before Neil and Buzz Aldrin actually landed on the moon, there'd been other Apollo rockets testing the facilities and testing the system. It really started for the Apollo in about 1968. So in December 68, the Apollo 8 went to the moon with the 3 astronauts, tested out the whole of the Apollo rocket, went round the moon, came back again, and that was like the first test. Okay. Then in February 1969, we had Apollo 9 that went into space, never went to the moon, it stayed around the Earth, but it tested all the systems. It tested docking up with the lunar module, with the lander. And then this month, May 1969, 40 years ago today, we've got Apollo 10.
I think we've got some images of Apollo 10.
Well, Apollo 10 was actually the full dress rehearsal. There's Apollo 10. Apollo 10 was the full dress rehearsal of the Apollo moon landings. They tested every single system on the spaceship. The crew of the Apollo 10, they actually took the lander, the lunar landing module that would land on the moon. They took it to the moon and lowered themselves to within 10 miles of the surface of the moon.
Oh, wow.
So they did everything. They did the whole of the testing and everything. Took the lander to within 10 miles. They could look out of the window and they could actually see the Sea of Tranquility where Neil and Buzz were going to land. Mm-hmm. If they'd have just tweaked that joystick just a little bit more forward, history would have been different. Mm. It would have been Thomas Stafford and Eugene Cernan would have been the first 2 men on the moon.
Oh, right.
Unfortunately, they were told very, very clearly not to land on the moon. so it must have been very, very close. The rocket, the actual Apollo rocket that they went in, this is the biggest machine that's ever been flown into space by anybody. You know, we've got the space station up there now, the International Space Station, but that's actually being built in space. The Saturn V rocket was 365 feet tall.
Oh,
it's huge.
That is huge.
It's huge. It's massive. The way I like to
makes you think, how the heck does that sort of like get to move right out of Earth's atmosphere?
How does that work? How does that work? Well, the thing about it is, it was built in separate stages. So they'd have the main stage from the rocket, which had the big 5 engines at the bottom. That would start taking the rocket up, getting into space. Once it had used all its fuel, and the fuel was the heaviest part on board, of course, because the outside of it was just made of very, very thin aluminium to keep the weight down. Once they'd used up the fuel, they were able to jettison that part. There was more rockets inside. They'd light them and fire it out a little bit further until you can actually get out into space. So it was a completely disposable rocket. Mm-hmm. Very, very expensive, phenomenally expensive to launch Saturn V rockets. And that's why they didn't last very long.
Okay.
The Saturn V rocket should have actually gone on to Apollo 20, 21, 22. Apollo 22 was actually built and ready to go, but they stopped at Apollo 17. They couldn't do it no more. It was just too expensive.
Okay.
So this month we're celebrating what I think was more of an achievement than the Apollo 11. Apollo 11 was the one that actually landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Apollo 10 was testing all the systems. They tested out everything. So when Neil and Buzz came to do it in July 1969, it'd already been done. Apart from those last little bit. everything else had been tested for them.
I bet the temptation was there to just took it the other way.
I think I'd have, if it had been me, I think I'd have pushed it forward.
Yeah, forget it, I'm going.
Who's going to shout at you? You're on the moon. It's a long way to shout.
Yes, this is true.
So actually, when we got into, so we're into 1969 now, 40 years ago this year. I was a little boy of 10 years old, sitting at home. In fact, my school teacher actually said to my parents, if Ken wants to stay off on Monday, because they landed on a Sunday night, if Ken wants to stay off on a Monday, we don't mind.
All right.
Because they actually, if you're ever in a pub quiz and the question comes up, when did the astronauts land on the moon? They landed on the moon on July the 20th, but they walked on the moon on July the 21st.
Ah, okay, so it's a trick question.
Well, it's a bit of a trick question. What happened was, it was very late Sunday evening. They landed about 9 o'clock, 9:30 our time, Sunday evening, but then they had to have a rest and put the spacesuits on and everything. And it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning, our time, by the time they got ready and got onto the moon. So it was a trick question. They landed on the 20th, they walked on the 21st.
I remember that. Test me on it next month.
All right. So this is our 40th anniversary. This coming July will be the 40th anniversary of the actual moon landings. I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot about this in newspapers and on the radio and TV. There's books being written, and I know for a fact that I'm actually back on the radio with Hannah on the 21st of July with a bloke who's written a book. So we're going to be talking about the moon landings.
Something else has been in the papers. What's this about Mars, that giant Mars?
Right.
Yeah.
Karen, it's a complete hoax. I've got 500,000 emails in my inbox telling me that Mars is going to come to within 35 million miles of the Earth, and it's going to appear as big as the moon. It's not. This story actually goes back to 2003 when Mars did come to the closest it could ever get towards the Earth.
Yeah.
We were as far out in our orbit, and Mars was as far in on its orbit. So as the two of us passed, we were at our closest, but it was 35 million miles away. And they reckon it's going to appear as big as the moon in the sky. Well, the moon and Mars are about the same size anyway in the sky. You know, if you put the two of them together, they're about the same size. The moon is 250,000 miles away. Mars is 35 million miles away, which is 140 times further away than the moon.
Yeah.
So if the moon was 1 mile away, Mars would be 140 miles away.
So it would
you can see a bit of a problem coming up.
Yeah.
Well, if you consider the sun, when you see the sun and the moon during an eclipse, they're just about the same size. The sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than Mars, but it's only 3 times further away than what Mars is at 93 million miles. So it's only 3 times further away.
So there's not much chance really.
It's not going to happen.
Giant Mars.
It's not going to. And just to knock another nail into the coffin, Mars isn't actually visible this year. It's on the other side of the sun for the rest of this year.
Okay.
So we're going to have to wait for another 18 months to get to see it anyway.
So everybody can forget that one.
So
it wasn't information that was correct.
No more emails. Mars is not going to be seen huge in the sky. But what we are going to see in the sky, though, is we're going to get another shot of the International Space Station.
That's good. For
Tomorrow,
those that missed it.
for anybody who missed it last night, we got a second chance. I've said before, the space station tends to come in fits and starts. You get a lot of it all in a short period, and then you don't get anything for the next few weeks. That's the wrong picture. That's the Hubble Space Telescope. And there's the space station. That's the International Space Station. That's the International Space Station. So it tends to come in fits and starts. In fact, yesterday, you could actually see it 4 times during the day. There was twice in the morning. The big one, it was 10:10 last night, and it actually went over again at about 1:45. Right. So there was, yesterday, it was 4 times. You could see it in one day. Tomorrow, you're going to get a second shot of it. At 9:30. 9:30 coming from the southwest. I think we've got the path it'll take here. Almost exactly the same route as it took last night. So it'll come over from the southwest, over from the Canary Isles, straight across Gibraltar and out in towards sort of northeastern Spain, really, and out in towards Italy. So that's the route. So if you have a look out tomorrow at 9:30, there it'll be. It probably won't be as good as it was last night because the sky won't be quite as dark as it was last night. The sky was almost pitch black when it went over last night, so it was quite impressive.
It was the best time to see it.
It was the best time to see it. But this thing is, it's almost finished now, the space station. We had the space shuttle Atlantis launched yesterday afternoon, but not to the space station. It wasn't going to the space station. It's actually on its way to the Hubble Space Telescope, which is a giant telescope that's been in space for the last, well, almost 20 years now. It's been up there. 1990 it was actually launched. It just needs servicing. I think they're going to change the oil and water and kick the tyres a little bit, you know, top up the windscreen, wash your bottles, general service. Yeah. The good thing, what they are going to do is they're going to increase the magnification that it's able to do. Our technology from 20 years ago to now has improved a lot. So now we're able to almost put a bigger eyepiece in, if you like. What we'll be able to do is see a lot deeper into space than we could see before with it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ken. Look forward to speaking to you, next month. And don't forget to tune into News and Views at 2:05 tomorrow, and we'll have all the latest news for you. And of course, we'll be interviewing associations or a local personality. So tune in tomorrow at 2:05. Until then, hasta mañana.